Aaron and I are here in Bakersfield on our EV road trip in California, and you were one of the first people we thought we have to meet with you to talk about everything EVs and utilities. So we'd love to hear what's your experience with EVs like.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, welcome to Bakersfield. It's the energy capital of California. I say it's the energy capital of the world, so I think it's quite appropriate that you're driving through and we're talking about energy and mobility. So welcome to Bakersfield.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, my experience with EVs, I've been kind of an early adopter. So I started driving when the range was only like 80 miles on a Nissan Leaf. And I've driven 2 Nissan Leafs, 2 Subaru plug-ins, a Chevy Volt, and yeah, one other I'll have to think. Anyway, I've driven like 6 EVs for business and all that, a Prius Prime, for example. But anyway, I've seen a lot of progress over the last 10 years, and it's really exciting. And like the car you're driving today, the range is a lot further, and so I think that's one big improvement that we've seen in the last 10 years.
What do you think is the utility's role in this electrification?
I think the utility role is really vital. I think Austin Energy is a good example of leadership on a utility basis. There's a lot of leadership here in California. PG&E, SCE, SMUD are all great examples. And really the planning and the infrastructure side of EV charging stations must involve the utilities. It's extremely vital to do the right engineering and the right studies ahead of time, and so we really benefit from, at least on the development side as an industry, when the utilities are leading the charge. And in that case, I think going back to Austin Energy, I think some utilities they're taking different approaches, and I think it's good to look at all of those different cases. And for me, I think the level 2 chargers that are like $10 or whatever dollars a month in Austin is completely unbelievable. So I think examples like that could further advance the electrification of transportation, but I think the utilities are playing a very important role.
Right. It's $4.17.
Oh my gosh.
For a subscription monthly for level 2 in Austin.
Yeah, so I think moving to Austin just for that is probably a good idea, you know?
Yeah, that sounds
great. So if California doesn't want people moving to Austin, where's our $4.17 at, you know? So, hey PG&E, hey Smart.
So we've seen in the news lately, there's been a few load issues in California with EV charging. How do you think about that? And you see their new rule for 2035, you have to have all electric vehicles.
Yeah, so I think that electric vehicles, recently a study came out that electric vehicles are being charged at night, but the sun and the excess energy is available during the day. So there's a disconnect between when there's excess energy that's cheap and clean, and when there's not enough energy and intermittent renewables are not available. And so I think that the development and the progress towards EVs is entirely possible. But I think we're going to need to do smart charging. We're going to need to integrate vehicles into and as part of the grid. And we're going to need to, as you had kind of highlighted before, really work with the utilities as an industry to identify where to best put the charging stations, mostly because, of those load and interconnection costs, as well as making sure you have the right amount of power coming into the location. So I think planning is probably the most important part, but I think technology on the smart charging and the vehicle to grid integration is going to be a tremendous opportunity, not just to advance renewables, not just to advance electrification and transportation, but also for the electric vehicles to play a role in helping advance renewable intermittent energy by being the endless storage of energy in the batteries of the cars. So basically the batteries in the cars can become an extremely important part of the grid. And I think with the move in California in that direction and other locations, that we're gonna see this be a huge success.
Right. Storage in V2G seems like a great solution for the problem with the duck curve here. Who's your utility? I'm curious.
This is Pacific Gas and Electric. So we benefit, and we've had a lot of incentive programs and rate structures and net metering in general, a lot of the progress that we see. There's solar behind us, there's EV chargers over there, there's EV chargers over here, and that has a lot to do with PG&E. And I think PG&E is, at least with the utility report that came out recently, is ranked up there in terms of renewables and EVs. So
wow,
good to be in this territory.
That's great. That's surprising.
Yeah.
You've worked with some cities in the past. Like, are you working with Bakersfield now?
Yeah. So in my role as a public affairs officer at SineWatts, we're working with the city of Bakersfield on a public-private partnership.
Okay.
And SineWatts is advising the city and in terms of building out EV infrastructure, as well as integrating electric vehicles into the grid, and for electric vehicles to play a role in powering buildings, vehicle to load for resiliency purposes. And then we'll be working with the university to educate and train the next generation of workforce that will be transitioning from this heavily oil and gas region to a more renewable opportunity. So there's a lot of built-in skill sets from this community that are going to be applicable, that we're gonna help this community move into new opportunities and continue the innovation.
That's one of the things that I'm most impressed by when people actually talk about cultivating the entire ecosystem around the industry of electrification. Is there any final words of advice or takeaways as a LinkedIn influencer too that you would give to people? Well,
I would say, like, as far as what you guys are doing, extremely important, this EV adventure, it's kind of a tongue twister, is we need more of this, right? So that's why I create content, and that's why I got started. I think for your own personal brand, for your business brand, but for the industry as a whole, it's extremely important for subject matter experts and for people that have valuable information to offer to speak up. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to create content and build community. And with that community of supporters, it's a lot easier to get things done. Yeah. So I would just say, if you're a subject matter expert, please, let's dispel all of the bad reporting. The reporters aren't the experts, you are. So if you could help us, that would be great. So this is actually a really high EV adoption area. And my experience in the solar industry, you would also question whether oil and gas people would like solar, or whether utility folks would like solar. And actually the people who get it the most, and some of my clients in the past, were mostly engineers or people that worked in the oil fields, and because they have higher pay, they have education and experience, and they understand energy better than the average person. And so I think they have an appreciation for energy in general, including solar and EVs. I do think that they have some practical knowledge that could be applied, and some advice. And I think that the beautiful thing about the city of Bakersfield and what I'm doing in this public-private partnership is combining the resources and the expertise of different segments of the energy industry into one. And I think overall Bakersfield is showing to be not just a leader in oil and gas. And by the way, we have 60-70% of the state's oil, but we also have 60-70% of the renewable energy generation right here in Kern County. So I think the leadership and the business-friendly environment of Kern County is driving growth, not just in renewables, but we're going to continue to see more growth in the electric vehicle market as well.